Also going to talk about a story about another Jezebel Ahab combination of people in a story from Reddit that we're going to read from like we did last week. And this one has another family situation where all the characters are there. You got the flying monkeys, you got the enablers, you got the Jezebel spirit, the narcissist spirit. You've got everything working in this story. And when I see those types of stories, I like to share them with you guys. Now, this guy's completely secularized. I'll forewarn you, we're not reading a Christian testimony here. This is just a man living in the world, dealing with much trauma and drama, and it's really quite sad what happens to this poor guy. And so I'm going to read it as best I can. I'll be excluding some salty language, but the story itself, I just had to share it with you because of the fact that, man, oh man, does it include so many elements of the Jezebel, Ahab, and families. So he starts off, I'm writing this from my phone, so bear with me if it's formatted wrong. So last night, my wife of 7 years decided to have a chill out night. After dinner, she went to the den and was watching her programs while I flitted between watching the Spurs game, football and soccer, and doing some odds and ends that I had planned. Next thing I know, she's got the wine out and has had 2 bottles of the stuff. At around midnight, I went to check on her, saw she was out cold on the couch. I'm telling you, whenever you drink to excess, bad things are going to happen. Demons are going to take over. You've given over your mind, especially when it's pure liquor, but you can definitely drink enough wine to be drunk enough to turn over yourself to demonic spirits that will gladly take over since you're blacked out. You're no longer in control. So going on, he goes, I went to scoop her up when her iWatch thing buzzed and a message popped up on the screen. It said something along the lines of, ha ha, I can't do that. My name being your husband would knock 7 shades of poop out of me. Laugh out loud, essentially. I wondered what that was all about, so I pressed on it, and it was a conversation between my wife and a friend of mine. Now, I wouldn't say this guy's a close friend, but he's someone I've played sports with for years, drank with, and have known since we were teenagers. We used to call him Jacket Holder because when we got into scraps as teens, he'd always be the guy holding the jackets while everyone else went for it. So last night, my wife of 7 years decided... Oh, wait, I already read that. Okay. I already read that. So as I said, I pushed on the conversation while the thing still attached to her wrist and scroll up to the top as far as I can tell. It's him that contacts her first. There's lots of flirting and winking going on, but nothing that you could outright say was cheating. Then I get to last night, and when she's drunk, she starts openly begging him to have an affair with her. I couldn't believe my eyes. Paraphrasing here because I can't remember the exact words, but she was saying things like how much she had always wanted him, how no one would ever find out if he did want to do something, and the last one killed me, that she was great at keeping secrets. So that gave him the instinct that, man, she's done this before. If she's kept secret, if she's great at keeping a secret about something like this, then she's kept secrets before. So he's dealing with a cheating wife. I tried to scroll on her watch, but couldn't find any other messages, and I don't know her phone passcode. I put her in bed and just sat in the kitchen in shock until I fell asleep. Then got up for work at about 5:30 a.m. When I went to get in my work van, I just slumped down on the wheel and realized I couldn't face it. So I went back in the house, grabbed a half-drunk bottle of vodka, filled it to the top with Coke, and went on a walk down the railway line. We live beside a lot of woodlands and a disused railway line that goes for miles, and I've walked about half the length of it. I'm sitting under a railway bridge like a troll right now, just seething at the whole thing. You'd probably think there's a fire going from a mile away due to the steam coming out of my ears. He's furious at this point, obviously. So what do? I don't want to speak to her. I can't even bear to look at her after reading what was in that texting. It was like a dagger through my heart. I just feel like every morsel of the love I had for her has evaporated into thin air after reading her begging like that. Just yuck. I honestly want to ghost her, man. If I could, I would never speak to her again. The whole I'm great at keeping secrets was the thing that got me though. Like, who even are you? It reeks, but it's a case of how far down the rabbit hole do I want to go? So now, man, that, again, like I said before, her saying that she's good at keeping secrets indicated that she had done this before. And we know that the Jezebel spirit in Revelation, Jesus says of that spirit that it seduces God's servants to commit fornication, and, lust and seduction are a huge part of that spirit if it's in a person, man or woman. And by the way, on Reddit, there are just as many stories of cheating men as women. So this obviously cuts both ways. So, all right. Let me make sure I'm at the right point. Okay, here we go. I don't care if I'm being honest. I'm just done. I've never felt so betrayed and disgusted in all my life. The thing is, I've invested so much in her, not just as a partner, but as a person. I loved her so much and thought her personality, and by extension, my personality, reflected that of good people. To realize she's a backstabbing snake makes me feel like a snake. I feel like a worse person than I was yesterday. The only way I can describe it is for someone you looked up to, took advice and life lessons from, to suddenly found out they were like a pedo or a rapist, or just a downright creep. Your entire perception of yourself and who you are could be shattered because you've taken on board what they've said and invested, and you've invested time into a creep. Man, I'm rambling nonsense, I realize, but I apologize. He felt such a connection. He was one flesh with her. They had a soul tie, which if I was his spiritual advisor, I'd say, man, you got to break the soul tie with her immediately, because you don't want to be tied to someone that's a cheat. Because things that you never dreamed you would do before, if you don't break the soul ties with people like that, spirits can ride on you through that soul tie if you don't break the soul tie and command those demons that were in the other person to leave you as well. He goes on, I'm fortunate in that our house is owned by my parents, who 6 years ago moved to a retirement village, and we moved into the house. The house will be bequeathed to me when they die, but I don't, and hopefully won't, own it for a long time. They couldn't be bothered with the upkeep and all the problems, etc., and wanted to see out their final days in peace, so when we divorce, my soon-to-be ex won't be getting her hands on it. I'm lucky in that, he's using lucky, I'll say change it to fortunate. I'm fortunate in that our house is owned by my parents, who 6 years ago moved to, already read that? So what do I do then? I'm honestly thinking of just not saying a word and throwing her right out. And while walking here, it went through my mind to get my mate, who's a locksmith, to quietly change the locks today. I could feed her any old garbage about something from the doors being broken. She won't care what's going on anyway, as long as I'm about. Then after he's done, lock the front door and tell her to come and look at something out the back. And when she comes out, run back in and lock the door behind me. That sounds childish, doesn't it? Seriously, though, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm staring at a bottle right now, and my life feels like it's been ripped apart. That's one thing, man. You don't need to be drinking in these situations at all, because that'll make matters way worse. As for that so-called friend of mine, there's no doubt he was up to something here. There's also no doubt I wouldn't have caught wind of this at all, so I'll be seeing him very soon. Never mind holding jackets, he'll be holding his face. So, first of all, I don't condone violence, but I understand the sentiment here, and he doesn't end up doing anything. Just as sorry to spoil it for you, but he doesn't end up doing anything, fortunately. Thank you to everyone who reached out to me after my first post. That was appreciated. So yesterday, after I had written the post and was in a complete mess, 2 dog walkers came over to check on me as I was concerning to them. I told them everything. They listened, and the first thing one of them said to me was, "Son, the worst thing you can do right now is drink. It'll cause carnage." I have to thank her for that, because I was on the highway to HE double toothpicks at that point. I threw the vodka away, got in touch with a friend, and he said I could come to his house for a while to calm down. He was at work, but told me where the spare key was. We live in a small town of around 15,000 people, and he wasn't too far away. Once I got there, I sat on his couch just trying to calm down. Throughout the morning, I was getting multiple texts and phone calls from my wife asking where I was and what I was up to, as my work van was still sitting in the driveway and I was nowhere to be seen. I texted her back telling her that there was a problem with the engine, so I got a lift to work, which she seemed to buy, as she just texted back saying, okay. Throughout the morning, I was getting multiple texts and phone calls. Oh, man, I kept double copying these things. When my friend got back from his work at about 5 o'clock, I told him everything that had happened and asked him his opinion. I also told him not to tell anyone about the jacket holder friend, as that might then get back to my wife, which I didn't want at this point. I would deal with him later. By that I mean I'll expose what a little rat he is. Knocking him out doesn't help me at all as of now. As an aside to the people saying he had done nothing wrong, well, he messaged my wife first. He was being extremely flirty. And what the heck is he even playing at messaging my wife for in the first place? He only knows her in passing from afar. Look, I've got no problem with two adults conversing with each other, but they hardly knew each other, and it was flirty from the start. Man, I don't know. I mean, if I'm married, I don't want my wife, and I don't think she'd want me having friends that were of the opposite gender. I personally wouldn't have, quote, friends that were girls if I'm married. I wouldn't do that myself. And I would hope that I would marry a woman that felt the same way. She can have all the friends that are girls that she wants, but and I could have my guy friends, but I think that'd be good to just separate that and take away these possibilities of what's happening here. Okay. I think they've seen each other out and about, and it's gotten flirty then too. So my friend convinced me to try and keep a low profile and see what I could dig up. But at the same time, speak to a lawyer and get the ball rolling in terms of finding out my options, which I have done today. It took me home about 6 o'clock, and I was honestly dead on my feet by that point. I think the adrenaline pumping the entire day, then suddenly stopping, knocks it right out of you. So I was extremely tired when I got home. Now here's the meetup with his wife. The second I walked through the door, I knew something was up, as my wife was on me right away, asking me all sorts of questions about work. I asked her, why does she even care? She said that I'd left my big flask and a lunch bag in the front passenger side seat of my van, and something's been up today. She could feel it. I was about to lie, but I was just too tired. I couldn't be bothered putting any sort of charade up. So I just said, yeah, there is something up. That when I was putting her drunk butt to bed last night, a message came up on her iWatch, which I read, and all the other ones, that she was a disgusting cheat that I wanted nothing more to do with. Her demeanor went from an arms-crossed person in power to a scared little girl within about a second. Great at keeping secrets, eh? Begging that little rat to have relations with you, eh? Yup, I read it all. She started sobbing, and I walked away and upstairs to the shower. When I got out, she was sitting on the top stair crying still, and the excuses started right away. How she was drunk, vulnerable, had never done anything like that before. Nonsense, because she said she was good at telling secrets, so that to me is an indicator she did. She also was saying how he had messaged her first and it didn't mean anything. She was never going to go through with it. Pretty much everything that everyone on here was saying she would say, like she had the playbook out. The only thing she didn't do was try and blame me. She probably knew I would have thrown her right out the door if she had tried that. I told her that I wanted a divorce and her out of the house within a month. And also I told her that she was moving to the spare room. I've been pretty much ignoring her ever since, just scowling at her and shaking my head when she starts waffling nonsense. I don't want to hear it. She slept in the spare room last night, and I haven't spoken to her or texted with her at all today. If I'm fortunate, maybe she'll be gone when I get back from work, but my fortune's not that good, I suppose. On getting her out, though, I was telling my parents what was happening, and my mother was adamant I wasn't throwing her out into the streets. Now, you might think there's two things going here. Mother's either super charitable and doesn't care about her son's feelings, that he's had to live with a woman that has evidently cheated on him in the past and was trying to do so right under his roof, and or his mother in her past was a cheater and was being overly permissive of her daughter-in-law's behavior because she had been down that road herself. And that's what I think about this mom, because she gives no empathy toward her son, and all of her empathy goes to her daughter-in-law who cheated on her son. This is the opposite of a son husband. He's more like a scapegoat, where he gets punished as the victim, and the villain, who is the daughter-in-law, gets no punishment from a narc. And that's something, I put that in the description notes. That is something that you can know a sign of a narcissist when they always attack the victim and they help prop up and scaffold the villain. I mean, I've seen this so many times in my own life. I've seen it in ministering to others. This happens time and time again. If a person's a narcissist, the victim inevitably gets attacked. It's almost like they see the victim as like, have you ever been in a dog pack at like a dog park and you see the dog that's too submissive and laying on its back and showing its belly, and some vicious bully dog comes along and just tries to tear its stomach out? That's how narcissists are when they see someone that's been hurt. They see them almost as the hurt animal, and they try to attack that animal, the weaker animal. And her son at this point has been extremely weakened and put into depression, sadness, grief. He's seeing as he feels like his life was for naught. Everything that he had done and fed into his wife's life was for naught. And this is the kind of, I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm actually being harder on his mother than I am on the wife. The wife's actions, while covert and hidden, predictable, but this mother coming in and attacking the victim, who is her own son, and scaffolding the cheating daughter-in-law, I don't know, that for me personally, that bugs me even worse, because I've seen this a lot, and I really dislike this about the narcissistic spirit, how it'll attack the person that's actually trying to do the right thing and help the one doing the wrong thing. And I know, as I say that, people that are watching, that are familiar with this, you've got tons of examples in your own life too, and this strikes a chord, I'm sure, not only with me, but with people that are watching too. Okay. So again, I'll read that again. On getting her out, though, I was telling my parents what was happening, and my mother was adamant I wasn't throwing her out onto the streets. Why does that have to be? Why does she have to go out onto the streets? There's no streets. She can go find her way to get someone else to help her live. She doesn't have to stay there under his roof. And that's another thing they'll do. They'll paint the villain as the victim, and if you do anything to stand up for yourself against the villain who's now the victim, then they will project onto the situation the worst possible outcome. So instead of his wife going to call a friend or stay with someone else or rent an apartment or do something for herself, she portrays it as his cheating wife is going to be automatically like walking the streets like a street bum, and with a grocery store basket, rolling it along, wearing like clothes from 10 years ago and shoes with holes in them, and sleeping in a back alley. You see what I'm saying? So that's part of the narcissistic spirit, to make the villain seem helpless so that you have to continue in service to the villain as the victim. And this is pure evil, guys. I'm telling you, I see through this sort of thing from experience, and this is so hateful to me. This is one thing I can't stand the most about people that are the innocent ones being punished by the narcissistic spirit. It just bugs me a lot. All right, so going on. And again, this man probably wasn't like completely innocent in everything he ever did. Jesus said that no man is good, but he's not the cheater here. And, his proclamation that he fed into his wife's life as much as he could, I really believe the sincerity of that sentiment. So he's way more innocent than his villainous, treacherous wife, soon to be ex-wife. Anyway, he goes on. She and my mother are close and always have been. We'd have been together 11 years in December. So his mother and his wife, very close. My mother was saying she made a mistake. So that's the other thing about cheating. People multiple times cheaters like her, they'll use the word mistake. No, it's not a mistake. You are making a decision that 9,999 times out of 10,000 is going to completely sink your marriage. And it's not going to work out after that. You're making a choice. My mother was saying she made a mistake and that we should sort it out like adults. So now the mother's projected onto him. If you don't sort it out, you're not behaving like an adult. You see, this is even more abuse of the victim. That we've been through too much together and that she didn't actually do anything. It was just words. Yeah, but you're going to find out later he's going to get more evidence that she had cheated before with other people or another person, and that her saying she knows how to keep secrets was an indicator of that. So the mother that's the other thing about narcissists. When they victim blame, they try to cover the tracks of the actual abuser, They try to gloss over it, and they try to do something, terminology me and a good friend of mine use constantly. They try to rug sweep like nothing, that it's not that big a deal. You're overemphasizing the harm of what the actual abuser did. So you're overemphasizing it. You can get over it. It's no big deal. Just take her back. And it was just words. No, it was much deeper than that. And that's the thing. Many people say that narcissists have no empathy. They have no empathy for a victim, but they have reams and huge amounts of empathy for villains. That's when they act sweet and syrupy sweet, when they're supporting and scaffolding evil and the evil person and making the evil person seem to be the victim. They can feel that pain. But honestly, she doesn't want to lose this daughter-in-law because she considers her like her own daughter. All right. Soon-to-be ex-wife slept in the spare room last night, and I haven't spoken to or texted with her at all today. If I'm lucky, maybe she'll be gone. I don't like that word, lucky. If I'm fortunate, maybe she'll be gone when I get back from work. But my fortune's not that good, I suppose. On getting her out, though, I was telling my parents... Oh, golly, guys. I double printed these pages a lot. Sorry about that. Okay. She completely took her side. My mom completely took my soon-to-be ex-wife's side over mine. I couldn't believe it. How could this be happening? Like, do I have no right to ask her to leave if my mother is against it? It's going to be my house when my parents pass, and I did nothing wrong, so I'm not leaving. It's probably going to turn into a War of the Roses Part 2, which was a movie from the 80s with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner and the little short guy, Danny DeVito, about a really horrible divorce. I managed to get myself an appointment with a divorce lawyer for next week, so I'll be going to that to discuss my options. Until then, I'm just going to ignore my soon-to-be ex-wife, I guess. No, she's probably not going to admit anything else now. I'll never know if she was really a good liar or she was just talking to him to get him to have an affair with her. Okay, so now here's an update. It's now been 20 days since I found out my wife was trying to cheat on me with my friend, and the situation has become hellish. I gave her a month to get out, and she's been sleeping in the spare room, but it's clear now she doesn't have any intention of going. Man, for me, if the person's not repenting, admitting the whole truth, and I don't feel an unction from the Holy Ghost to have her stay, dude, I'm grabbing her by her ear and dragging her out in metaphorical terms. Calling the cops, I'm getting her out of there. And she can't stay unless you let her. She has no intention of going after she got in the ear of my mother. She doesn't have anywhere to go at any rate, but that's not my problem. True. I've seen my divorce lawyer multiple times and am now in the process of drawing up a divorce petition and having my wife serve divorce papers. I've also opened my own bank account and taken 50% of the balance from the shared account. So now he's going through all the red tape that goes around divorce. I'm not sure if I even need to read any more of this. Actually, I want to at least get to the part where he talks about his dad. And he talks about having panic attacks too. Let me see. A lot of people in these cheater Reddit forums, when their spouses are cheating on them, they experience panic attacks where their heart beats really fast and they feel like an elephant standing on their chest. And I've noticed that pattern in ministry too. I even did a video on it probably 3, 4, 5 years ago. Yeah, 5 years ago at least, on panic attacks with regard to narcissist Jezebels. Because if your spouse is cheating, I think because of the soul tie, you know it, and your body is physiologically reacting to the cheating that's going on. Oh, by the way, I'll update you on this. The jacket holder, the ex-friend, he's been the talk of the town since he exposed him to his friend group a few weeks back. It's safe to say that he has no friends left among us and has been completely ostracized. He tried phoning him a few times, but he refused to answer and then blocked his number. So he took care of him. Now, I don't know. The part about his dad was the fact, and he mentions it, and I'm trying to find it, but he mentions that his father had always enabled his mother to behave that way and how that really irritated him. And I don't know if I was reading another strand, another update that I didn't put up on the screen here, but that's the other aspect of it. Often when you have a Jezebel spouse, there might be an enabler. And usually, typically, if it's a man that's been in a long-term marriage with a strong Jezebel, he's clearly been brought to the point where he won't defend himself anymore. He won't defend others. He's learned the hard way that he can't stand up to his wife because she will use a variety of tactics that will take him down and make him miserable and make his life really hard. So he actually talked about how offended he was by his dad. Actually, the rest of the story, now that I'm remembering it, I obviously didn't bring it in, was the fact that his mom ended up shortly thereafter going to the hospital because she fell and like broke a couple ribs and everything. And she called him into the hospital, and he thought maybe she was going to apologize for the way she had treated him. But no, she was still trying to get him to reunite with his ex, with his soon-to-be ex. Never, ever showed an ounce of empathy toward him and understanding about how his cheating wife had broken the covenant. And he was really upset with his dad because his dad didn't stand up for him. And that is such a huge problem in families that have narcissists and enablers in them, is that whoever the scapegoat is going to suffer a lot at the hands of both the narcissist Jezebel and the Ahab enabler. It's really terrible. Well, we're going to